I still remember the exact moment, standing in my office watching 10 years of hard work evaporate after that devastating court ruling. 5 years ago, I lost everything I built from scratch when false accusations and a rigged legal battle crushed my tech company. What hurt most wasn't losing my business or my home. It was watching my own family not just abandon me but actively join those who destroyed me. Parents who raised me, my own brother, who grew up beside me, they all turned their backs when I needed them most. But what they never expected was my return. What shocked them even more was what happened when I did. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit that subscribe button. This story will show you exactly how I rebuilt my life when everyone, including my own blood, left me for dead. I was always the odd one in my family. While the restaurant business ran through their veins for 3 generations, I was obsessed with computers and coding since age 12. My father, Frank, would shake his head every time he caught me programming instead of learning how to properly slice vegetables for the family restaurant. My mother, Diana, would leave coding books untouched when cleaning my room, treating them like foreign objects that somehow infected her son. My older brother, Gregory, was worse, constantly reminding me that I was betraying our heritage by not embracing the culinary arts. When I announced my decision to study computer science instead of culinary management, the dinner table fell silent. Frank put down his fork, sighed deeply, and asked if I understood what I was throwing away. A guaranteed future. A respected family name in the local restaurant scene. Security. This internet thing is just a fad, he insisted, waving his hand dismissively. Computers will never replace real businesses where people meet face to face. Despite their disapproval, I pushed forward. College was tough without their emotional or financial support, but I worked night shifts at a local tech repair shop while building my first app between classes. Those were grueling years, living on ramen noodles and coffee coding until 3 a.m. in my tiny apartment where the heat barely worked. But every exhausted moment felt right because I was following my passion. The breakthrough came during my senior year when my scheduling application caught the attention of several small businesses. The first time my bank account showed a 4-figure deposit from my own software, I nearly cried. By graduation, I had enough clients to rent a small office space and hire 2 part-time developers. When my app won a regional innovation award, I invited my family to the ceremony. To my surprise, they came. I still remember their faces as my name was called, a mixture of confusion and reluctant pride. At the dinner afterward, even Gregory admitted he was impressed by the sleek interface I had created. My mother asked questions about my business model for the first time. Dad remained quiet, but nodded approvingly when I explained my 5-year growth plan. It felt like a new beginning, like maybe they were finally seeing that my path, while different from theirs, was valid. That award ceremony changed things. Suddenly, my parents started introducing me as our son, the tech entrepreneur, to their friends. The restaurant began featuring a framed article about my company next to their original opening day photo from the 70s. These small gestures meant everything to me. Around this time, I met Jackson at a networking event for startups. Tall, confident, with perfect teeth, and an MBA from an elite university, he represented everything I thought a successful businessman should be. When he expressed interest in investing in my company, I was flattered and excited. "Your code is solid, but your business structure needs work," he told me over drinks. "With my connections and your technical skills, we could easily 10 times your current valuation within 2 years. We became partners, with Jackson taking 40% equity for his investment and business expertise. The company expanded rapidly under our joint leadership. We hired more developers, moved to a proper office downtown, and secured contracts with larger clients. I was living my dream. There were warning signs about Jackson I ignored. How he would take credit for my technical innovations during investor meetings. The way he dismissed my concerns about growing too quickly. His habit of making decisions without consulting me. But the company was thriving, and I was too excited about our success to rock the boat. What I found strangest was how quickly Jackson and Gregory became friends. My brother, who had barely shown interest in my career, suddenly started showing up at company events. They would go golfing together on weekends. Jackson even began consulting on the restaurant business, suggesting modernization strategies to my parents. With the influx of capital and expanding client base, I finally bought my first real home, a modern townhouse downtown, and replaced my 15-year-old car with a new Tesla. Nothing extravagant, but significant upgrades from my student lifestyle. During a Sunday dinner at the restaurant, my father cleared his throat after dessert was served. "We have been thinking," he began, glancing at my mother, "about expanding the restaurant, opening a second location across town." I smiled, genuinely happy for them. "That sounds great. We were hoping you might want to invest," my mother added quickly. "Jackson thinks it could be very profitable with the right technology integration." The request caught me off guard. I would need to look at my finances. "The company is still reinvesting most profits for growth," Gregory scoffed. "Always about your precious company. The family business has supported all of us for decades, and now that you have some success, you cannot even help expand it." The conversation grew tense. What had started as a normal family dinner devolved into subtle accusations about my priorities and commitment to family. I left feeling confused and hurt. These subtle tensions continued for weeks. Phone calls became shorter. Sunday dinners featured more silence than conversation. When I did share news about the company, my excitement was met with tepid responses or quick changes of subject. During this challenging period, I met Sarah at an industry conference where she was representing a marketing firm. Smart, ambitious, and genuinely interested in my work, she listened intently as I explained the technology behind our latest project. We exchanged numbers, and within weeks were dating seriously. Sarah brought a new energy into my life. She understood my passion for building technology and supported my long work hours because she shared the same drive in her own career. For the first time, I felt truly understood by someone. When I brought Sarah to meet my family, their reception was lukewarm at best. My mother barely engaged with her questions about family recipes. My father kept conversations superficial. Gregory was the worst, making pointed comments about gold diggers being attracted to successful men. After we left, Sarah asked, "Did I say something wrong?" "No," I assured her, though I felt uneasy. "They just need time to warm up to new people." But they never did warm up to her. Every mention of Sarah was met with forced smiles or concerned looks. My mother once pulled me aside to suggest Sarah might be using me to advance her own career. The distance between my family and me grew wider, forcing me to compartmentalize my life. Family dinners became obligatory rather than enjoyable. I found myself making excuses to skip gatherings, preferring Sarah's company where I felt accepted. The beginning of the end started with an ordinary Tuesday morning email. Our head of customer support reported unusual activity on our servers. By noon, we confirmed the worst: a massive data breach affecting thousands of our premium clients. Personal information, payment details, usage patterns, all exposed. The next 48 hours were a nightmare of emergency meetings, frantic calls with cybersecurity experts, and drafting press statements. I barely slept, fueled by anxiety and caffeine. Jackson surprisingly remained calm throughout the crisis, assuring everyone that we would weather the storm. News outlets picked up the story quickly. "Rising tech company compromises user data," read the headlines. Our stock price plummeted. Clients began terminating contracts. The company I had built from nothing was suddenly fighting for survival. During an emergency board meeting, Jackson spoke with unexpected certainty. "Our investigation indicates the breach originated in the core architecture, the section Ford personally oversaw." I stared at him in disbelief. "That is impossible. My team and I reviewed that code extensively. The vulnerability must have come from the new security protocols you insisted we implement last quarter." The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. One of them, a gray-haired investor who had always supported me, leaned forward. "Ford, we understand this is difficult, but the logs clearly show the access point was in your area." I requested copies of these logs immediately, but what I received looked manipulated. Key timestamps were missing. Access records seemed altered. When I raised these concerns, Jackson smoothly suggested that perhaps I was looking for scapegoats rather than accepting responsibility. That night, I called my parents, hoping for some emotional support. My mother answered, her voice unusually distant. "I cannot talk long, Ford. We have guests." "Mom, the company is in serious trouble. I think Jackson might be behind it somehow." A long pause followed. "Jackson mentioned you might say something like this. He told us everything this afternoon." About the corners you cut on security to push features faster. My stomach dropped. You believe him over me. Your own son. He showed us documents, Ford. Your signature was on them. I drove to the restaurant immediately, desperate to make them understand. When I arrived, I froze at the entrance. Through the window, I could see my entire family seated at our regular table with Jackson. They were laughing, sharing wine, looking completely undisturbed by the destruction of my life's work. As the crisis deepened, class action lawsuits from affected users flooded in. Our legal team warned that the company might not survive the financial implications. I threw myself into investigating what really happened, convinced Jackson was somehow responsible. Late one night, working alone in the office, I discovered an unusual transaction pattern. Jackson had been quietly selling his shares over the past month before the breach was public knowledge. This was clear evidence of insider trading. I documented everything and secured the files on my private encrypted drive. The next morning, I found my office had been searched. My computer showed signs of unauthorized access. The crucial evidence was gone. Security footage for that night had been conveniently corrupted. My suspicions were confirmed when our receptionist mentioned seeing Gregory in the building at midnight using a key card that had Jackson's access privileges. My own brother had helped sabotage me. I confronted Gregory at his apartment, my hands shaking with rage and betrayal. How could you do this to me? Your own brother Gregory did not even try to deny it. You have always been selfish, Ford, always putting your ambitions above family. Jackson showed us who you really are. What are you talking about? Jackson is investing $5 million in expanding the restaurant into a national chain, something you never offered to do despite your success. He values family legacy. You only value yourself. I was speechless. So you helped him destroy my company for money. I helped expose your negligence. Gregory corrected coldly. The fact that your poor security practices finally caught up with you is your fault alone. I drove straight to my parents' house, hoping they would listen to reason. They sat stiffly in our childhood living room. As I explained the evidence of Jackson's manipulation, my father shook his head throughout my explanation. Jackson warned us you would try to blame him. He showed us exactly how you cut corners on security despite his warnings. Those documents are forged. I insisted, my voice breaking. Why would you trust someone you barely know over your own son? My mother's response cut deepest, because Jackson shows up for family. He understands tradition and respect. He is investing in our dreams while you chase your own. The final blow came when I learned that Jackson had approached our biggest competitors, offering insider knowledge about our products in exchange for a position. With mounting legal pressure, vanishing customers, and dwindling resources, the board voted to replace me as CEO. The severance package was insultingly small, barely enough to cover 6 months of expenses. I called Sarah that night, voice hoarse from arguing with lawyers all day. Everything is gone. The company, my reputation, most of my savings once the legal fees are paid. Her silence spoke volumes. 2 days later, she returned her key to my apartment. I care about you, Ford, but I need stability. I cannot be with someone who might be bankrupt and unemployable in this industry. Within a month, I was forced to sell my townhouse. With my name tainted by scandal and lawsuits pending, no tech company would touch me. My savings drained rapidly between legal fees and basic living expenses. I moved to a small one-bedroom apartment in a rundown building on the edge of town, the only place I could afford, while trying to rebuild some semblance of a life. Depression hit hard. Days blurred together as I barely left my apartment. Emails went unanswered. Phone calls unreturned. The weight of betrayal from everyone I trusted crushed any motivation to fight back. My identity had always been tied to being a successful entrepreneur, a technical innovator. Without that, I felt hollow. Rock bottom has a unique clarity. When you lose everything, pretenses fall away. 6 months after losing my company, I sat in my dingy apartment bathroom, staring at my unrecognizable reflection. Unshaven hair, 2 long dark circles under my eyes. I had been avoiding reality, drowning in self-pity. That morning, I received yet another rejection email for a basic programming job. The HR person had Googled my name and found articles about the data breach. Nobody wanted to risk hiring the person responsible for exposing thousands of users' data regardless of whether it was true. Desperate for any income, I swallowed my pride and drove to my family's restaurant. Sunday brunch service was just ending. Through the window, I saw my parents moving between tables with practiced efficiency. Gregory was working the bar, charming customers with his easy smile. And there, seated at the best table like he owned the place, was Jackson. I entered quietly and waited by the host stand until my mother noticed me. Her eyes widened slightly, but her expression remained neutral as she approached. "Ford, this is unexpected. I need to talk to Dad, and you, privately." She hesitated, glancing toward Jackson, who was now watching us intently. "We are quite busy. Please, Mom. I would not be here if it was not important." In the small office behind the kitchen, I faced my parents. For the first time, I noticed how they had renovated the space. New furniture, modern computer equipment, a fancy coffee machine that probably cost more than my current month's rent. "I need a job," I said simply. "Any position you have available." My father raised his eyebrows. "You want to work here?" "After refusing to learn the business your entire life, I have no options left. My reputation in tech is destroyed. I cannot even get interviews anymore." My mother crossed her arms. "What skills do you have that would benefit the restaurant?" The question stung because we all knew the answer. I had spent my life avoiding learning the family business. "I can wash dishes, bus tables, whatever you need." They exchanged looks I could not quite interpret. Finally, my father nodded. "We need a dishwasher for weekend shifts. Minimum wage, plus tips from the busboys, if they feel generous." The humiliation burned, but I accepted. As I turned to leave, I overheard Gregory's voice from just outside the partially open door. "Is he serious, dishwasher? How the mighty have fallen." Jackson's voice followed, lower but still audible. "Some people need to learn humility the hard way. Maybe now he will appreciate what a real business looks like." My father's chuckle in response was the final cut. I walked out without looking back, knowing I would never return to that restaurant again. They had not offered me a job out of family loyalty. They wanted to witness my degradation up close. That night, I met my neighbor Tony for the first time, when the building's ancient heating system failed. We gathered in the hallway with other residents. As the superintendent explained, repairs would take days. Tony, a man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, invited several of us to his apartment, where he had a working space heater. Over cheap whiskey, I learned Tony had been a programmer in the early days of the internet. He had retired early after selling his security software to a major corporation. "I recognize you," he said suddenly. "You are that kid who lost his company in the data breach scandal." I braced myself for judgment, but instead Tony leaned forward with interest. Something never sat right with me about that story. The timeline of the breach, the way it was discovered. It felt staged. For the first time in months, someone was willing to look past the headlines. I found myself telling Tony everything, from Jackson's manipulation to my family's betrayal. He listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or frowning. When I finished, Tony was silent for a long moment. "Your mistake was playing by rules while dealing with someone who does not recognize any. To beat someone like Jackson, you need to change your approach entirely." That conversation marked the beginning of my resurrection. Tony began reviewing the technical details of the breach with me. His decades of experience in cybersecurity revealed patterns I had missed. We discovered that the breach had actually been executed through a backdoor, specifically created 2 weeks before it was discovered. The access logs showed an IP address that, when traced through several proxies, potentially connected to a device registered to Gregory. "This is not enough for court," Tony cautioned. "But it is enough to know you were set up." Knowing the truth reignited something in me. I was not seeking revenge exactly. What I wanted was justice and my reputation restored. With Tony's guidance, I began planning my comeback. Not for money or status, but to reclaim my name and expose those who had destroyed what I built. Rebirth requires courage and patience in equal measure. Tony became my mentor, business partner, and friend. We started small, working from his apartment on a new security verification system built specifically to prevent the kind of breach that destroyed my company. "The greatest comeback stories start from nothing," Tony reminded me often. With no resources, you have to rely on pure innovation and grit. We lived frugally, investing every spare dollar into development. I sold my car, relying on public transportation. We took freelance coding jobs to fund our project, often working through the night after completing client work during the day. 6 months into development, we connected with Amanda, an attorney specializing in tech industry legal battles. Unlike my previous lawyers who were paid by the company board, Amanda took genuine interest in the evidence we had gathered. "This is circumstantial, but compelling," she said, reviewing our findings. "If we can establish a clear connection between Jackson, your brother, and the breach timing, we might have grounds for a civil case." While Amanda worked on the legal strategy, Tony and I perfected our product. We created a security system that not only detected breaches, but could trace them to their source with unprecedented accuracy. The technology was built on the painful lessons of my past failure, transformed into innovation. 1 year after hitting rock bottom, we were ready to launch our new company, Phoenix Security. The name was Tony's idea, a nod to rising from the ashes. Our first product demonstration at a regional tech conference garnered immediate attention. Several companies who had suffered similar breaches approached us for consultations. What we did not publicize immediately was how we were using our technology to quietly gather evidence about what really happened at my former company. Our system could retroactively analyze breach patterns in ways that were not possible before. When applied to the data I had managed to preserve from the original incident, it revealed conclusive proof of deliberate sabotage. Amanda filed our lawsuit with careful precision, timing it with our company's first major client announcement. The evidence package was delivered simultaneously to the SEC for the insider trading violations we had documented against Jackson. The industry reaction was immediate. Several former clients reached out expressing doubts they had always harbored about the official breach story. Former employees came forward with testimonies about strange directions they had received from Jackson in the weeks before the incident. Phoenix Security grew faster than we anticipated. Our approach to transparent security measures resonated with clients traumatized by increasing cyber threats. Within 18 months, we secured major contracts with financial institutions and healthcare providers, building our reputation as the most trustworthy security solution in the market. The legal case moved more slowly, but with mounting evidence and growing industry support, Jackson began to feel the pressure. The SEC investigation uncovered additional financial improprieties beyond what we had initially discovered. His other business ventures came under scrutiny, revealing a pattern of manipulative practices. 2 years after launching Phoenix Security, we received the news we had been waiting for. Jackson was indicted on multiple charges of securities fraud, wire fraud, and computer crimes. The evidence trail eventually implicated Gregory as an accomplice who had provided physical access to secure areas of the company. The arrest made national headlines. My parents' restaurant, which had expanded to 3 locations with Jackson's investment, saw immediate impact as customers connected the family name to the scandal. Within weeks, they were forced to close 2 locations and scale back operations at the original restaurant. I received a text message from my father on a Tuesday afternoon. "We need to talk." When I arrived at the original restaurant location, the contrast with my last visit was stark. The place was empty except for my family seated at a corner table. My mother looked older, worry lines etched deeply around her eyes. My father's confident posture was gone, replaced by a slumped resignation. Gregory sat with his head down, unwilling to meet my gaze. "You won." My father began, his voice hollow. "Jackson's investors have pulled funding. The expansion is bankrupt. This location has 3 months before we default on loans. I did not do this to win or to hurt you." I responded calmly. "I did it because it was the truth." "We need your help," my mother said directly. "We were wrong about you, about Jackson. We are asking for financial assistance to save the restaurant." The request was exactly what I had once imagined would feel like victory. Them needing me admitting they were wrong. Instead, I felt nothing but sadness for the broken family before me. "I will not give you money," I said finally, "but I will offer you something else. Jobs. Real ones, not dishwashing positions meant to humiliate. Dad, we need someone to manage vendor relationships. Mom, our client services team could use your experience. And Gregory, if he avoids jail time, can work in facilities management while completing community service. Their shock was visible. They had expected either vindictive rejection or easy financial rescue. Instead, I offered them the chance to earn their way back just as I had done. "Why would you help us at all after everything?" Gregory asked, finally looking up. "Because holding on to anger only prevented me from moving forward. I am offering you a path to rebuild your lives, not a handout. The choice is yours." 2 years after that meeting, Phoenix Security became the industry leader in cybersecurity solutions. Our technology is now used by government agencies and major corporations worldwide. The company valuation exceeded my original company's peak by tenfold. My father now heads our procurement division, having discovered a talent for negotiation that served him well beyond restaurant suppliers. My mother manages client retention, with the same attention to detail she once applied to regular customers at the restaurant. And Gregory, after serving 6 months of house arrest and community service, now teaches coding to at-risk youth as part of our corporate social responsibility program. I occasionally see Sarah at industry events with her new husband. The awkwardness has faded, replaced by professional courtesy. I harbor no ill will toward her choices, understanding now that different people serve different purposes in our journey. Through Phoenix's success, I met Amy, a brilliant cybersecurity analyst who joined our team after finishing her PhD. Unlike anyone else in my life, she knew my whole story from the beginning and valued both my resilience and the hard-won wisdom that came from my failures. Our relationship developed naturally, built on mutual respect and shared values about loyalty and integrity. The family restaurant was eventually sold, but not as a desperate measure. Instead, it was a conscious choice to fully embrace our new chapter. The proceeds established a scholarship fund for young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. Sunday dinners have resumed, though they look different now. We gather at my home or sometimes at Tony's, who has become something of a surrogate father figure to me. The conversations are more honest, the relationships more authentic, because they are chosen rather than obligatory. The greatest lesson from my journey was not about success or revenge. It was learning that true strength comes from remaining whole when others try to break you. That forgiveness is not about forgetting wrongs, but freeing yourself from their continued power over you. And that sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what truly matters. If my story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that rock bottom can become a foundation. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? How did you find the strength to start again? Let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if this story gave you hope that even the darkest moments can lead to unexpected light. Thank you for listening, and remember, your comeback story is still being written.